Cheers, buddy. I like the name, by the way. Snake Eater Garage. That's rad.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I was starting it off with
the car thought
process.
It
was going to be a car focused thing, and I think I'm still going to do, like, you know, from time to time I'll do, like, you know, videos on my cars. And
it's a broad enough title, you can kind of do whatever you want with it. Like, it fits.
Yeah, exactly.
You can literally do anything you want.
So I'm here with Rob McQueen. You know, we worked together when I was down in Louisiana.
Yep.
So you were in civil affairs.
Civil affairs, yep.
And now you are. I was going to say you work for Waves for Water, but you've. So it's still Waves for Water.
Yeah, I still work for Waves for Water. So I just went from full time down to part time just because COVID destroyed us. So, you know, you have to scale back as you can. So we scaled, like pretty much everybody off of full time.
Okay.
And now we're just handling it project by project, trying to push things up and get it going. And I've got my veteran division, which we can probably jump to that another time. But that's really where I'm focused right now, is getting that veteran division, keeping my boys employed, or my crew employed, and keeping them in the field as much as possible right now.
I guess to get started, just you know, tell me a little bit about just growing up. Like, what was, where did you come from? What were you like, you know, especially in high school, and like what? Because I want to get to like what sort of steered you down the path.
Yeah, and that's so I was born and raised in Sun Valley, Idaho. So right now we're in Boise, so about 2.5 hours away. Small ski resort, population of like 3,000 people, and I grew up there. Right now you go there and you're going to run into every celebrity you can imagine, politicians, multi-billionaires. Like it's the playground of the rich and famous. But when I grew up there was a few celebrities here and there. My dad's a construction worker, my mom's a teacher. Really no military service in my family. So I grew up skiing and playing hockey. I've done both since I was like 3 years old. And then really, an interesting piece, and I guess to the childhood, is so my grandfather, Clarence, who was my dad's dad, he moved from Malibu to help raise me and my sisters as my parents worked. My dad was a contractor, my mom was a teacher. So he was working, my dad was working 60 hours a week, my mom was working 40 and trying to get her master's. So my grandfather moved up and raised me. And my grandfather, unbeknownst to me at the time, actually turned out to be one of the original Navy SEALs. So he was UDT in World War II, battled the Philippine Sea, like fucking legit. And I had no idea when I was younger. And I remember interviewing him at 10 years old. And like that was the first time I was kind of exposed to, because what I knew him from, so he went from the Navy in World War II, which both my grandfathers served in the Navy, and it's really the only military you're going to find in my family history. Both in World War II, both on destroyers, one a SEAL, one an officer. And then my grandfather left and was an engineer and actually went on and designed, I think he designed the heads-up display and electrical systems for the F-5, worked for Northrop Grumman. Yeah. He was a crazy engineer. He patent after patent, his workshop downstairs. I remember driving up, coming back from college, pulling up in my truck, and he lived next door to my parents' house. And there's like this hole in the ground with like a little bit of electrical tape around it. And it's like caution tape. And I pull up and he's like, hey, don't go near that. I was like, what's in there? He's like, plutonium. I just started laughing. I was like, what do you mean plutonium? He's like, plutonium. He's like, I'm testing the decay and effect of radioactive decay in electrical circuits because he's an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you get plutonium? He's like, you make up a fake company, you make a few things, you write it, you call the right people, you get plutonium. I don't want to hear about it. And so I'm sitting there, looking.
This is some like Doc Brown.
Doc Brown. Like, and I mean, his whole basement was basically like Doc Brown. But I mean, we would have like the third grade projects, and everyone else would do like a volcano with this thing, and I would build like a sail snowboat. And my grandfather was like, let's build this like 30 feet wide with a sail mast. Like, it was just crazy what that man would do. And so I would say the biggest influence on me growing up, if I had to like kind of chart the path, would be growing up with that man and being raised a lot by that man. My dad, incredible human being. I couldn't be luckier with my father that I have, but I was just twice as lucky to have that grandfather in my life. And so that influence from him and learning from him, and then especially when I finally went through, and the trigger point for me was hands down 9/11. 9/11 happened. I was like, all right, I'm in. Like that was it. I was like, I remember when I first started college, and they were like, hey, take an ROTC class. I was like, this is never going to happen, boys. Like, I'm never going to join the military. It's not for me. 9/11 happened, and that flipped my entire perspective. And so,
I guess are there any events or anything that really sticks out in your mind from that deployment?
Yeah.
Anything that sums it up? Or,
yeah, I mean, honestly, So it was the end of the surge. So, gunfights weren't like it wasn't the day-to-day gunfight. It wasn't like the guys that we relieved 210, 2nd Brigade, 10th Mountain. And I remember talking to those boys, and they were like, dude, we are done. Like, 06 into 07 was probably the heaviest fighting that existed in Iraq, into 05 through 06. And so we came in right on the tail end of that. So we saw some, but it wasn't crazy. It was mostly trying to, playing whack-a-mole. Yeah. So we did a lot of raids, and most of them were dry holes. But I think the moment that really got me, because in the first time, and we mentioned this the other day, that moment where you're going in as I'm a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, young, wet-behind-the-ears lieutenant. I'm ready to fight for my country. And my entire thought process getting here was hey, this is it. This is my piece. So, I'm kicking in doors. I'm doing everything I think I'm supposed to do. I'm talking to the sheikhs. I'm doing all the meetings and managing. I think we had 900 Sons of Iraq. Yeah. And we were going back between being a brigade QRF and literally just kicking in doors every night to managing 900 Sunni volunteers to doing reconnaissance ops and doing safe house operations for 10 days. 10 days at a time, refit, and then going back out trying to target a lot of IED cells. But the thing that really sat with me, to get to your question, because throughout all of this, I'm yeah, we're in the fight, we're doing the right thing. There was kind of one big moment that was a big aha moment for me, and I think has shaped me since then. So we did a raid, find a weapons cache, so we're oh good, not a dry hole, good raid, we roll everybody up. I had this incredible interpreter, and so we're walking through this room, and I remember going in, doing SSE on the house, and as the PL, I'm kind of walking through as my team's SSE in it. And I look at the stack of leather-bound books. You could have made a Ron Burgundy. This place smells like leather-bound books and rich mahogany in a dirt hut outside of Baghdad. But I go in, and there's a stack of leather-bound books, and there's this pink one in the middle. I'm what the fuck is this? So I go over, and I just grab it, and I look, and I open it up, and I don't read Arabic. At this point, I don't speak Arabic. And so I start flipping through it, and I can get to the point, I was numbers, date, numbers, date. And then next to it was a check with a circle, or no checks. And I was hey, Rob, my interpreter's name was Robbie. Or AJ was with me. So AJ, come over here. And he grabs me, he looks, and he throws the book down and gets pissed off and runs out and snatches up the dude we've got restrained outside and starts screaming at him he's going to hit him. And I was AJ, what the is going on? He's this killed my friend. And I'm whoa, dude, whoa. And I bring it, and it's this is a pink My Little Pony notebook. I can't make this up. It is seared in my mind. And so AJ, he's this is the attack, here's the date. This is 2 years ago. And what it was the dude's ledger. Yeah. It was his ledger. It was a mind-blowing. I sat down with AJ, he goes, look, this. And he's going down to explosions that targeted us, IEDs that we'd hit, going down through that place of this dude, rocket attacks, the whole piece. This guy was a major player. But as I'm reading it, I'm dude, what is he's oh, it's the money he gets paid. He's this is how much you're worth. This is how much he got paid for doing this attack. This is the battle damage of the injuries. This is this. So it was just the guy's ledger. Yeah. And I started to realize, I was man, we're not fighting this. We are fighting this ideological, true radicalized enemy, but this guy ain't it. Yeah. This guy's really not my enemy. And I realized, and there was a lull in the pain where we had to stop paying our Sons of Iraq, and all of a sudden, all of our volunteers were now putting IEDs in. And so at that point, I realized, I'm not in an ideological war. I'm in an economic war. It's this guy just wants to feed and protect his family. Because one, if I'm not paying him, someone else is. If I'm not arming him, someone else is. And the reality is that I'm not going to be there all the time. And so unless he can actually defend and take care of himself, the fact is that he's going to take money from both and try not to get killed by either of us, because that's the line he had to walk. And at that time, I didn't have any kids. Now having 3 kids, looking back, that guy had 3 daughters. He's just like me. That moment, sitting there and realizing this dude was really not my enemy. Yeah. And it's hard to realize, a guy has been trying to kill me for months and been successful at killing a lot of other Americans, but he's really not my enemy, because I can't fail. I had that conversation with my boss, who was my first company commander was fantastic. Next guy was okay. But I remember having that conversation, hey, I don't know about this. Go do the job, hit the house, do the thing. Yeah. And I was but we're not, this is more complex than that. So I had to find a place where I could approach complex problems with complex solutions. You can't approach a wicked problem set with an 11 Bravo and an AT4. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. But we try it a lot. Because you guys were stuck on managing each one of your lanes and your G bases, whereas I got to sit in with the special activities piece and work a larger network, which was really great for me. It lended a lot to my experience from Bosnia. It let me really kind of learn a lot about UW and really like dig into that because I had to sit down and have a conversation with people that were experts. So it really forced me to dig into that skill set. And then what it did for me, which was great, is it really let me know that, you know, this might be time for me to look for something else.
Yeah.
And so I started my own nonprofit based on kind of my experience working with Waves for Water. I called John Rose. I was like, hey man, like, what do you want? Like, how could I do this? You run one, you're super successful. Tell me what this is. And so we have that conversation. And then like 2 weeks later, he calls me up. He's like, Rob, I think this is March of 2016. He goes, hey man, I want to build a military division that works with U.S. embassies. Will you help me do it? And I was thinking it was like a quid pro quo. Like I helped him, he'd help me. I was like, yeah, man, of course. Like let me know on the side. I got time on the back end. I can put some hours in and help you build it. Calls me like a week later. He's like, hey, I want you to run it. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I was looking at getting out. Sure. So I get off the phone and John Rose, like he's kind of one of those guys. You know, I mean, he's in the circles. He's been successful. Waves for Water has a great reputation. I was like, I don't think this opportunity comes up very often. So I have no idea what money I'm going to make. Not a fucking clue. I don't think it's going to be very much because it's nonprofit. I talked to my wife and I was like, do you want to be in the military? She's like, I hate Louisiana. This is the worst place I've ever been. Get me the hell out of here. And so I call my cousin, I call everyone, and I was like, you know what? This opportunity doesn't come around. That door, that job, just no interview, no nothing. I want you to come do this. And I was like, I'm in. So I dropped my paperwork like the next week.
Yeah.
2 days later, he's like, hey, I need you in Guyana. And I'm like, Guyana? Like, you imagine putting a leave packet in for Guyana?
Yeah.
So I went to our SATI commander at the time. I was like, hey, I have a job interview. He was great. Take your time, all the time you need. I was like, it's in Guyana. And he's like, what? I was like, it's in Guyana. He goes, I got you. Go do it. I was like, and I think only in SATI, where we had such a tight group of people, and in that type of unit, would that have been able to fly?
Yeah.
And it was great. And so I went to Guyana, had the interview, did the project, came back. They're like, you're in. You're good. We're going to put you on the payroll. Can you start working now? And so I did 3 projects while I was working at SATI. I went to Costa Rica, Guyana, India, I think, and just really was like, this is my new way forward. And so basically my wife and I did the numbers. I'm like, this is the bare minimum we can make it. And like the offer came across. He's like, this is all I can give you. And it was literally the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So I did the reserve piece to supplement and make sure I had healthcare. And I just went to the races, man. We decided to shift from a military division to a veteran division. And then I built the Clean Water Corps, which is veterans doing clean water all over the world. And so this was early September, so like first week of September. So we get down to, I land, like we fly down, I link up in Puerto Rico with like 6 of like the Waves for Water crew that comes to disasters is always a mixed bag. And they're incredible people, but you got pro surfers, videographers, businessmen, like this amazing group of people that have all kind of gravitated towards John and Waves for Water over the years. And so I get down, I get in with this incredible group of like 3 rad pro surfers, guy by the name of Dylan Graves, Ben Bourgeois, got John Rose, Otto Flores, this incredible surf photographer named Jimmy Wilson. I'm just like, it's blowing my mind in this process. Like, these dudes are insane. And I'm just here going down to St. Croix. And we land in Puerto Rico, and I remember them pop up like Windy, which is an app I'd never seen. They're like, dude, it's looking rough, man, in the ocean. They showed it to me. I was like, I have no idea what that is. It's like swirling shit on the screen. I was like, it looks like wind. They're like, tropical depression. I was like, yeah, but that's fine, right? They're like, I don't know, man. And I'm looking at it, I don't have a clue, but I don't realize that these guys basically in their minds are more or less meteorologists because every single tropical storm creates the swell that they chase all over the world. So these guys see it and they're like, that's what's going to happen. 24, like I end up jumping on some like probably used to be drug running boats. Now they were doing some humanitarian assistance, like running speedboats for like 2 days between St. Croix and St. Thomas and, you know, St. John and Virgin Islands, just doing what we do, hammering it hard as we can. And we get back one night and we're like, hey, Hurricane Maria has popped up. We're like, what's Hurricane Maria? I'm confused. They're like, it's a big hurricane that's going to be a Cat 5 when it hits here on St. Croix in 24 hours. And then it's going to hit Puerto Rico. So we ride out Hurricane Maria for the craziest birthday. I got drunk with on my birthday with Otto and the bartender. The hotel Hyatt did a great thing. They brought all of their employees' families in. Like, hey, employees, keep working, take care of the people here. I mean, we had refugees in the hotel from Irma that had just moved over. And so they're there.
So they were all still reeling from Irma.
From Irma. I mean, this was a week and a half, 2 weeks after Irma. And so you had refugees from Tortola and St. Thomas in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico was the lifeline of supplies For them, everything was going through Puerto Rico to get over to the Virgin Islands. And Puerto Rico got smashed. Destroyed. I mean, I went outside. I remember sitting in the middle of the day watching the world end around me. Like at the hurricane glass, people are eating breakfast. I got a video of people eating breakfast and like palm trees like flat on the ground. It was insane. And then that ends, you know, and I didn't realize, you think a storm, like, you know, like 6 or 7 hours, like 15 hours. Like, it's not like a tornado that's like, it's here and it's gone. Like, you're like, no, that thing moves at like 3 miles an hour, just slowly across the island, destroying everything for days on end. It's insane. And so going out the next day, I just remember going out and being like, holy shit, like this place is gone. Like the first time I saw Puerto Rico was 24 hours before Hurricane Maria. The next time I saw Puerto Rico was 24 hours after. And it just went crazy from there. And we ended up we got booted out of the hotel because it was destroyed. So we ended up like calling people, breaking into apartment buildings, trading security for fuel. A good buddy of mine, Chris Hudson, another SF guy from Third Group, brought Chris down. I flew him in. And so then we ended up splitting up, like heading out west across the island with Dylan and Chris, and just have teams running everywhere. I ended up jumping a helicopter over to Tortola and fulfilling our promises we made to go help in Tortola. And then like hitching a ride on, I'm pretty sure, a shady ass helicopter coming back where the guy we'd land. He's like, get out. I was like, no customs, just go. I was like, well, I'm just gonna get out. I learned a lot about the actual implementation of non-standard logistics. I was running all of our supplies because everything in Puerto Rico got tied up. I was running my supplies through a contract that had refrigerated vehicles. We didn't mark anything. Like, I think I understood non-standard logistics. I understood the experts at it. I've gotten really good at that, working like 12 natural disasters by this point, because nothing works the way you think it will. But that was a game changer for me, man. Yeah, that was a game changer. Every single thing we did was about helping somebody else. Everything. And it took a bit for that to really weigh on me, because that's what we think we're doing in the military. And I'm not saying we're not. I'm torn back and forth on if we made a difference, positive or negative. I know that on a tactical level, we all did good things and we all did bad things. Like, I can look back and be like, I helped somebody, I hurt somebody. And whether it was right or wrong in both ones, like we're all going to struggle with that for the rest of our lives, because that's what it is. I'm comfortable with it. I have zero regrets. But like, you always have to weigh, when you look back on something, it always has a different light to it. But now I'm sitting in a place where I've got a group of people and we're just trying to bring water, which is as crystal clear a mission you can get to someone somewhere around the world in a remote location that nobody else is going to go to because they're too scared or they're not competent enough to get there. And then the second I do it, this is not like a long-term project or international development. Like, from the time I get on the ground to the time I leave, I can see that change in their life, because I can see that light bulb go on in someone's eyes. And when you see a mother or a father look at you and that light goes on, and we do a demonstration with water where we hold a dirty glass and a clean glass and we drink it, and like, then they'll be like, me, and they'll take a drink and their eyes will get big and they'll hand it to their kid and they'll watch their kid drink, and watch grown men just start crying, and like in the middle of things just walk up and grab on and hold on, like mothers and kids. Like, a moment for me that blew my mind was we ran the Dakar Rally in 2018, and so we partnered with Dakar, my incredible team in Peru, and the first place we get to is this just dust hole, like dry, like western town, mud, like kind of like adobe brick, super rundown, super poor. And a truck would come by and just fill up their water tanks, which is just like a trash can, basically, like a 50-gallon drum. And they put like a Brit on, and they'd come in with their water, and they just fill it up once a week, and that's what they had. And so they didn't have a lot of water. It was dusty and dirty, and so there's this group of like 10 girls, like little kids, and we start to do a demonstration at one family, and they come up and they're watching, and they watch, and they see the water come out clear, and they come in, and 3 of the girls run away, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. Finish the demonstration, I come back, and they come back with like 10 kids. That's a 5-gallon bucket filled with dirty water that's coming out, and they're like, por favor, agua para mí. Yeah, absolutely. They fill up a cup, and this one girl, she gets it and she chugs it. And then she goes, más agua? I was like, yeah, para mis amigos, do it, go. And she just starts filling it up. I refilled the bucket twice. This group of 10 kids drank almost 15 gallons of water, dude.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there and I'm watching these kids, and like, I had to sit down, and it's those moments where you realize, like, not only is my purpose to make a difference, but it's that moment when you realize, like, this is what I've been looking for. Yeah. I've been looking for making an impact, and looking to make change and having a positive impact on somebody else's life, where I challenged, it was difficult, I worked through the challenges and the problem sets, and then you get to the end and you're like, holy shit.
Probably going to start wrapping it up, so Sort of like the big questions that I want to,
yeah.
The big brain stuff.
Oh yeah, dude, let's do it. Because I may be the wrong guy for that question, but let's do it.
So, what did your military service mean to you?
Holy shit, that is a big one. Everything. And I think it's a weird thing because, and that's kind of a cheater answer, the people and the relationships that came from it are the foundation, are going to be a foundation for the rest of my life. I made friends in there that will never be equaled. And having those pillars allows you to move forward, I think, with a level of comfort. So that part of my military service, it is the foundation of the next step of my life and the rest of my life. These skills and respect, I just said, well, with the skills and experience that I have set me up for success in the rest of my life. If I'd gone and built houses, I wouldn't have the skills and perspective that I have now, because I think that perspective is massively important, especially in today. And I think a lot of people in our country lack perspective. And really understanding true sacrifice. I think that's the part of my military service that is hard. It's also the most important, because when you look at today and you look at where we are, and people that hate America, which drives me nuts. You can disagree with how we run it. Stop hating it. Like, this is the most incredible country on the planet. And the people that I know, and the families, the people who have given everything, that is what really means the most for my service to me, is having had the honor to serve with people like that, and to know that that's a part I'm always going to carry forward, is that I'm never going to live up to them, and that's good, because I'm glad that people like that lived. But I think that part of the service carries me forward in the way I approach how I engage with my fellow Americans from here on out. Because there is a line and there's a thought process when you may not understand that perspective, and you may not understand the feelings and the heart that comes from those of us that know that feeling. But at some point, you're going to push it far enough, you're going to find out. And that's a hard thing to understand. And I think that if we can do a better job of letting people understand where we come from, in the love of America, not in how we run it, not in the problems that we all know we have, but in the love of it and how important that is, maybe we can start taking that service and what we've learned from it and try to change people's perspective.
I guess that about wraps it up. Do you want to throw out, like,
plug
the companies that you're working with, ventures that you're working on, and then some of the podcasts that you're working on.
So start with a plug for the Clean Water Corps. If you have a desire to go out and do some rad shit, find purpose with an incredible group of human beings, go to wavesforwater.org and just search the Clean Water Corps, and you can come out and join us, join the team. It is a great group of people. We do ride motorcycles across the Gobi Desert, small boats in the Mekong Delta. Like, we do rad to help people in remote locations, and we like getting out there and getting after it. So if you want to come join a good team and find a good purpose, come on, let's do it. Waves for Water, parent company, and just an overarching organization. So can't go wrong. Take a look at wavesforwater.org. Follow us on Instagram and support us. Really the big one, if you got time, search for Bacardi and Cola podcast. It's similar to this. It's my buddy Carl, a guy I served with when I was in Bosnia. He was in Kosovo. You were on our show today. But Bacardi and Cola podcast on Apple and Spotify. Give us a listen. Follow us and share it if you could. That would help us out as we can just try to break down the walls and have conversations that people are uncomfortable with, and that's the goal.
Right on.
Yeah, buddy. And you got to come out to Boise in the winter. We'll go skiing.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Yeah, brother.
All right. Dude, thanks a lot for doing this with me.
Dude, my pleasure.